You know those moments in life, the ones that feel like a real uh, emotional reset.
A chance for a completely fresh start.
Exactly. And, well, that's what we're exploring today. Specifically, why the upcoming new moon in Cancer on June 25th, 2025, is being talked about as exactly that kind of powerful moment.
A really significant energy shift.
Yeah. And for this deep dive,
Mm.
we're mainly drawing from the astrology of the day for June 25, 2025.
Right. And also that piece, New Moon in Cancer, A Sacred Reset, both from Tarot by High C.
That's the one. And just quickly, you can find more of their work at tarotbyhic.net.
Good to know.
So, okay, our mission today. Let's really dig into what this specific new moon signifies. We're talking emotional connection, family, nurturing,
Those core Cancer themes.
right? And crucially, find some, practical ways you can tap into this energy for your own growth, for healing.
Let's do it. Sounds fascinating.
Okay, so first off, the general vibe of this new moon in Cancer. The sources describe it as really tender, protective, empathetic.
Very nurturing.
Yeah, like embodying this need to cocoon, almost a cosmic nudge to get cozy with your inner world. But what's underneath that? What's the deeper astrological meaning?
Well, the sources frame it really compellingly, I think. Not just another lunar cycle, but a sacred reset of the heart, home, and inner foundation.
Wow, okay. Sacred reset, that's big.
It is. They even call it an emotional rebirth and ancestral healing. So think less fresh start and more like hitting a deep emotional reset button,
Yeah.
aiming for your true self.
Huh. Emotional rebirth, ancestral healing.
hmm And this connects directly to the kind of core invitation here, which is we are being asked to remember who we are beneath conditioning
Huh.
and who we were before fear altered our
Well,
past.
for fear, wow.
Yeah. The sources actually describe this new moon as kind of pressure point.
A pressure point.
Yeah, pressing against outdated family patterns, ancestral wounds, false identities, and interestingly, the inner child longing for safety.
Okay, so it's really urging us to look at those deep, maybe uncomfortable layers.
Exactly, to confront them, release them, and ultimately reclaim who you really are underneath it all.
That's a profound call, remembering who you were before. But okay, how do we actually do that? I mean, it sounds powerful, but practically speaking.
Right. It's one thing to talk about it.
Yeah, what does making space for the world ready to be born inside us look like day to day?
That's a great question. And the sources do offer guidance. They suggest planting seeds, metaphorically speaking, around things like emotional security, healthy boundaries, and what home really means for us. And that's key, whether home is, a person, place, or ritual.
So it's very personal. Like if I need more safety, maybe I focus on routines or clearer communication in relationships.
Precisely. It encourages you to define home on your own terms, not someone else's.
Okay, I like that. It's about defining it for yourself. Now, while we're doing that, leaning into positive intentions, are there pitfalls? Things to maybe watch out for?
Yes, there's a quick caution in the sources, basically to avoid being too indulgent in negative or heavy emotions.
Ah, okay, so don't just wallow.
Kind of. It's about building something new, right? So the focus should be more on that intentional creation rather than just dwelling too long in past hurts. Acknowledge, yes, but then pivot.
Acknowledge and pivot.
Mm.
Got it. So we've got the general feeling, the invitation, but these big cosmic moments always have specific astrological weather, right? Aspects that challenge your support.
Absolutely. There are always nuances.
Let's get into those specific alignments that are really shaping this new moon. Where should we start? Maybe with the challenging stuff.
Yeah, let's tackle that first. We have the new moon in Cancer square Saturn plus Neptune.
Okay, square. That usually means tension, right? A challenge.
Exactly. It forces a kind of reconciliation. In this case, it seems to be about balancing your dreams, your visions, that's Neptune, with the discipline and reality check of Saturn, spirit and structure.
Dreams versus discipline. I can see that could feel tricky.
Definitely. You might feel some disorientation or disillusionment because of that friction. The sources also warn that a serious tone may increase fear or a fatalistic attitude.
Fatalistic, like, oh, what's the point?
Sort of, yeah. So it really calls for self-awareness, especially around any power struggles. We need to be alert to any ways in which we act compulsively out of fear and a need to control.
Oof, compulsive action out of fear. That's a big one to watch. Okay, so that square sounds like it demands some real inner honesty.
Right.
But is there a counterbalance, a more empowering energy?
Yes, absolutely. There's also the new moon in Cancer sextile Mars.
Sextile. That's generally more harmonious, more supportive.
That's right, a flowing energy. And this one suggests enhanced self-confidence and courage. It inspires us to, take the initiative and maybe even take new risks.
Okay, courage and initiative. I like the sound of that.
hmm And it emphasizes precision and sacred action. It clarifies it's not chaos, not collapse,
Thank goodness.
just steady, intentional movements that anchor emotional truth in our body and life.
Steady, intentional movements. Anchoring emotional truth. That feels grounded.
It is. It creates a nice balance, doesn't it? The square pushes for reconciliation. The sextile gives the courage to act on it.
Yeah, it really does. And it makes me think of that phrase from the source, something like evolution lives in the details.
Exactly. Because often healing isn't loud or dramatic.
Right. It's consistent.
It's about that quiet consistency. And actually, there's a beautiful narrative in the source material, The Seed Beneath the Moon, that illustrates this perfectly.
Oh, a story. Let's hear it.
Yeah, it really brings these ideas to life.
Okay, set the scene for us.
All right, so picture this. The night of the new moon in Cancer, everything's silent. The ancient trees held their breath, the seas stilled, even the stars seemed dim, as if to make room for something sacred.
Okay.
And in a misty forest, there's a woman, Alara. She's the last daughter of a long-forgotten line. And her lineage, it's marked by grief, unspoken fears, and wounds passed down like heirlooms.
Passed down, like her ancestors carried this heavy burden.
Exactly. They never named it. But Alara, she feels this call, something different.
A call to break the pattern.
You could say that. Guided by instinct, she goes to this clearing. There's an old ancestral altar, just weathered stones, seashells from a long-lost shore, and faded tokens.
Simple things.
Very. And she places her offerings. Sprigs of mugwort and rose, a moonstone warmed by her skin, and a single fragile seed.
A seed. What's special about the seed?
Well, this seed was the last gift from her grandmother, a woman who apparently spoke in riddles.
Well, of course.
And her grandmother told her, plant this when the moon hides her face.
Okay, the new moon.
When your heart is both breaking and becoming whole.
Wow. Both breaking and becoming whole. That captures it, doesn't it?
It really does. That duality is so key to this kind of deep healing, and it echoes that core message we talked about earlier, right? Remember who you were before the world told you who to be.
Yes. Okay, so Alara has this seed, this profound instruction. What happens when she plants it?
As she kneels and presses it into the earth, the air changes, and then phantom figures of her ancestors appeared in the mist.
Whoa. Scary.
No, the text says not to hunt, but to witness. Their faces showed grief, yes, but also hope. And one by one, they placed ghostly hands over their hearts in silent benediction.
Wow. A witnessing, a blessing almost.
And in that moment, Alara feels something shift inside, a tender warmth unfurled in her chest. Her inner child, long buried, starts reaching toward the light.
Ah, that inner child connection again.
Exactly, and she has this profound realization. Home wasn't a house or a family name.
Right.
It was the space she created within herself. It was the rituals she chose, the boundaries she honored, the stories she rewrote.
Home is the space within, the rituals, the boundaries, the rewritten stories. That's powerful. It makes you think, doesn't it? What does home mean to you? Is it a place, a feeling?
It's a great question this new moon asks.
So Alara has this realization. Does she say anything, do anything?
She does. She looks up at the dark sky and whispers this vow. I release what is not mine to carry. I claim my name, my path, my truth.
Releasing what's not hers, claiming her truth. Beautiful.
And then just this. The seed beneath the earth pulsed once with silvery light. But Lara didn't feel some huge, dramatic shift, no sudden miracle.
No earthquake, no lightning.
No, just a steady, quiet knowing. Which brings us back to that key message from the source.
Healing didn't have to be loud.
It only had to be constant.
That consistency again. So
Yeah.
what happens to Alara?
Well, as the very first hint of the returning moon appears, she gets up and leaves the clearing. The seed is there, rooting, and the text ends beautifully. And though the world outside remained unchanged, a new world was already blooming within her.
A new world blooming within. That story, it really brings all those threads together, doesn't it? The reset, the ancestral piece, the inner child, the quiet consistency.
It really does. It shows how personal and subtle this work can be.
What really struck me was her finding that home within. What's another key takeaway from Alara's story that you think is really vital for people listening?
I think it's the emphasis on how ancestral healing, or any deep healing really, isn't necessarily about these huge cathartic explosions. Sometimes it is, but often.
Often it's quieter.
Yeah, it's those quiet, consistent acts, choosing a different response, setting that boundary, planting that metaphorical seed, recognizing, like Alara did, that you actually hold the power to rewrite your own story,
You hold the power to rewrite it, even with just a fragile seed.
especially with that fragile seed.
Okay, that's a really hopeful thought to hold on to. So, wrapping things up for today, we've covered a lot about this new moon in Cancer, the reset, the challenges, the opportunities, that beautiful story.
It's a potent time.
Definitely. So, maybe a final thought for you, the listener, as you reflect on all this, something to mull over.
Mm-hmm. How about this? How might you identify and, honor the fragile seed of your true self, or maybe that ancestral healing in your own life, especially right now, perhaps, if your heart feels, like the grandmother said, both breaking and becoming whole?
That duality again, breaking and becoming.
Exactly. And tied to that, what quiet consistency, however small, could you commit to during this lunar cycle? What could you do to nurture that seed?
Well, quiet, consistent action. That's a great closing question. This new moon really does sound like a powerful invitation, a chance to create your own sacred reset.
It truly does. A chance to nurture what's blooming within.